What's up, guys? Pachata Rockstar here, doing another educational Star Realms video. Hope you guys like it. Played against this person, Baldazilla, and plays pretty well, but three key mistakes come up in the early game that spells his doom, and they're very interesting decisions, I think. So let's take a look at them. I'll show you what I mean. Very first one happens right here, turn 1. He has 3 trade. We don't know it. Does not buy the convoy bot. So already, I think this is a mistake. There's scrap available in this convoy bot. There's 2 5-drop scraps. So you can't afford to fall behind on scrap, especially this early. But instead, he buys the Alliance Transport. So not only does he make a mistake to not buy a scrap, he also makes a mistake to not buy the Blob Miner, which has 3 trade instead of 2, which would give him access to these 5 drops. So already, huge mistake in card evaluation, and pretty much spells his doom over the next 3 turns, the mistakes that he makes. Anywho, the decision has been made. See, so he ends up having 3 trade, not by the convoy bot. So we've only got 4 trade. And this is why this is another big risk, is because I am guaranteed to have 3 trade with 5 cards. So I'm definitely at least getting the convoy bot. But more likely, I might, well, not more likely, but I might have 5 trade, and I might buy the mech cruiser, the enforcer mech. So he's giving me options in terms of which scrappers I want to buy. So I end up having 4 trade, buying the convoy bot. I think this is pretty standard. I need to get the scrap edge. He's decided to forego scrap, so I'm going to take advantage of it. I'm going to get the scrap edge. Going second, having a scrap edge is really big. So he ends up buying the Blob Miner again, which is fine because it turns out he only has 3 trade, so he wasn't able to get these anyway. Fair enough. If it's the only thing you can buy, get the Blob Miner. But he should have gotten the Blob Miner on turn 1 if he wasn't going to buy the convoy bot. So no big deal. I got 4 trade. An argument could be made with all these big 5-drops out here to get 2 explorers. My thinking is I have a scrap, he does not. So I'm just going to win with efficiency. That's the plan. My plan is here. It's going to be red, probably yellow, but mostly red. I'm going to try to get those 5-drop scraps. I'm going to scrap really hard. This is how I'm going to win. So I've already decided it's going to be scrap, mostly aggro. Or mostly scrap with some aggro. So here's the next mistake he makes. He scraps Ion Station. Why he was afraid of Ion Station, I have no idea. I've given no indication of wanting to get trade. There's really nothing that expensive out there. Why is Ion Station the scary card? The scary cards are the 2 scrap cards over there. He should have scrapped 1, and then with his 5 trade, because you know he has it when he's got 3 trade with the Blob Miner, and bought the other one. So then he'd have been even on scrap, he'd have been ahead on damage, and he would have denied me a scrap card. So here's another crazy part. Look what flips. A defense bot. So he's going to have 7 trade, and he's going to go defense bot enforcer mech, which I think is fine. You could argue the enforcer mech is a better card than mech cruiser. I think they're about the same, but enforcer mech has a chance to draw a card later. Maybe you want that, but quite honestly, I like the 5 damage at the base destruction more than I like drawing a card a lot of the time. So usually I like the 6 damage, but it's okay. So now he's going to get back ahead on scrap. He's going to have 2 scraps to my 1. So I think this is a fine play now that you've seen the cards. But given the row that was out there already, it was a bad play. He should have scrapped the enforcer mech or the mech cruiser. Then he would have flipped a defense bot. Then he would have bought both of them, and he would have been ahead on scrap. Instead, he gives me an opportunity to get back even on scrap. And I'm actually ahead because I get the opportunity to scrap first. Yep. So this is fine. So here's another thing that might be a little controversial, or it might seem like it. I'm scrapping a scout, and then I'm going to buy a star barge. So obviously the Star Barge matches with the Battle Barge to give me a combo and potentially give me some discards. Potentially get him to throw away 2 cards, which is good. I think it's a much better play than buying the Skiff. I have no blues. There's no Ion Station now, so not gonna combo there. And I really have no intention of buying anything, and he should realize that, but he doesn't. Um, but the other thing that I'm doing here is I'm prioritizing scrapping down ahead of getting 1-drops. And excuse me, I think that's really important. Uh, Oftentimes, these 1-drops will just bloat your deck later on and will give you bad draws when you should be getting good draws. And like I said, I'm prioritizing efficiency in this deck, so the faster I can get rid of all my scouts, the better. So I'm trying not to miss any opportunities to scrap. Yep. Okay. So here's another mistake he makes, which I'm not quite sure if it comes back to bite him or not because he never really combos his blues. But he's got 3 trade here, and he buys a Frontier Runner instead of a Skiff. Odd. I don't know why he's worried about his life total. He's only down, I think he's 38 at this point. Yeah, he's 38. So, I mean, he's hurt a little bit, but I already went through all my damage cards. You know, I probably have 4 or 5 trade coming up. So I don't understand why he's so worried about his life total right now. Especially since he has a scrap edge on me. He should feel like his deck is going to become more efficient, and that's how he can win. You know, he can just come back with big damage turns later on. But apparently he's scared. So I think his intention was to buy the Frontier Runner and then buy the Skiff. But then this flops a Federal Transport, and he buys the Federal Transport instead of the Skiff. So he's prioritizing healing over card draw, which I also think is a mistake in this case. What he should be doing is prioritizing efficiency. His deck at this point should be more efficient than mine, at least in terms of scrappers. He has 2 scrappers, I have 1. So in theory, he should be making his deck more efficient than mine, and getting Skiff Frontier Runner together to draw another card also adds to his efficiency. So he's prioritizing life gain over efficiency, which I think is a mistake because he already has an efficiency edge. Whenever you already have an edge on an opponent on different vectors of winning, you need to press that advantage. If you have a scrap edge, you need to press your scrap edge. If you have a trade edge, you want to press your trade edge, but then use that trade to do something else. And that's another mistake that a lot of people make is they overvalue trade. They just get trade for trade's sake. They're not getting trade to target a specific card. Like, you'd want to get trade on a row like this because you could get Blob Alpha, Mech Cruiser, you know, to a lesser extent, the, fuck, what is that card? The Trade Hive. Maybe you want to target that, maybe you don't, but the point is to use your trade to get big cards, and he's not even really doing that. He's just healing up. And the thing is, if you're healing up, you're playing not to lose, you're not playing to win. So, we luck out. We luck out big time. He makes a mistake, leaves me the Mech Cruiser. I get 5 trade. This is a clear buy. So now the scrap is 2-2, but I have a 1 scrap edge because I scrapped first. This is fine. You know, he's prioritizing scrap. That's okay. He only had 4 trade anyway, so what else was he going to do with his trade? Theoretically, maybe he buys the gunship, matches up here, tries to get something bigger, I guess, but no, he recognizes, okay, it's a scrap card. My opponent has 2 scrap cards. I should get ahead. I'll protect my face. He's trying to protect his life total. Again, I don't know why he's at 38. He's got plenty of life, but yeah. So now he buys the Skiff. I think that's actually fine at this point. Now he's got 3 blues in his deck. And they're all nice, sort of tradey, healy, delay, extend the game blue cards, so that's fine. The problem is his deck is not that efficient yet, so they're not going to combo very well. And, he does have the Alliance Transport, so like I said, he's kind of building a red-blue deck, but he doesn't seem to have really committed one way or the other. And again, I'm prioritizing scrapping. I'm going to get that Warning Beacon. And I think that's a pretty standard-ish play. Not standard, but I think it's the right play. I could have scrapped the Viper to buy the Gunship, which is a thought. It's not a bad play. It's a yellow. It does 5 damage. It discards a card. Again, I have other yellows in my deck it could combo. I could be building a red-yellow deck. I think it's fine. But I'd rather have the Warning Beacon because now, if I can get bases to combo with the Battle Barge, that's going to be primo. And it's a red base. It'll help me destroy bases later on when I combo it with the Mech Cruiser. So I think this is the right play given the circumstances. I think this is an aggressive play. It's a play that prioritizes damage over later trade. The Emperor's Dreadnought out there gives a little more credence to buying the Gunship, but right now I'm starting to smell blood in the water, and I'm just going to try to make my deck as efficient as possible and try to get as much damage as possible. And I luck out. I get a Stinger, which gives me more damage. I love Stinger. I think it's fine. So here's another. I don't necessarily call this a mistake, but it's an interesting play. There's a Blob Alpha and an Emperor's Dreadnought out there. He scraps the Blob Alpha with the intention of buying the Emperor's Dreadnought, because he has a trade later on. But then he flips an Ark and decides to buy the Ark instead. I don't like this play. The reason is because I could still get the Emperor's Dreadnought later. But the buying of the Ark is fine. What he should have done, though, is scrap the Emperor's Dreadnought. If he's not going to buy it himself, it's more dangerous for me to potentially top deck the Emperor's Dreadnought, or put the Emperor's Dreadnought in my hand, than it is for me to get a Blob Alpha, which has to go into my deck, and then I'll later on draw. Plus, the likelihood of me cobbling together 8 trade, not really that high, but it's risky. Why risk it? There's a Gunship out there. I could buy the Gunship. I could flip that into the Emperor's Dreadnought. So, I think all in all, leaving up the Blob Alpha and buying it yourself would have been the better play. Scrap the Emperor's Dreadnought, then buy the Blob Alpha. Now, in this case, the Ark comes out, then you buy the Ark, but it's more okay for me to have the Blob Alpha than it is for me to have the Emperor's Dreadnought. So again, like another sort of like card evaluation mistake on my opponent's part. Although this one I would say is not terribly egregious. They're both dangerous cards. Here's where I think I might be making a little bit of a mistake. I'm kind of okay with the play, but especially considering there's not much else I could have done with it. I ended up buying 2 trade stars in a row. If I'm valuing efficiency, trade stars are not really that efficient. But I think an argument could be made that I'm buying the trade stars to get the Emperor's Dreadnought. But my opponent does have a Blob Miner, and he could scrap it later. So I think this play is actually more likely to just bloat my deck than anything else. And I have to pair the trade stars with 4 other trade, which is hard considering that I've been scrapping scouts for the most part, and I really don't have a lot of other trade cards. So I think I should have just left them there and said, forget about it. Trust my deck, trust my efficiency, maybe buy a Gunship or a Pack Warship later, and that's it. Just kind of stuck with my damage plan. So, yeah, let's chalk this up. I think I'm going to chalk this up to a mistake. But you got to realize my opponent has made 3 egregious mistakes at this point. I've only made 1. This is fine. Pack Warship is a great card. Buy it. Buy it and buy it now. You know? I guess my opponent was right to fear for his life total. No, he wasn't. He should have just been efficient. So anyway, I'm going to scrap 4, and then I'm going to buy the gunship. So I actually thought about this play quite a bit. And I was like, should I get the defense station? Combo with my reds, give me another base. But I turned it around and I said, my life total is fine. Potentially I can go gunship and Emperor's Dreadnought. I think that's a little more important than it is to get another base to potentially combo with Battle Barge. That was sort of my thought process. I think you could argue both ways, though. I think getting Defense Station would have been a fine play as well. But I was really just going, I want that 1 extra damage. I want that discard. I want the ability to get the Emperor's Dreadnought. And I'd risk, and I have a higher, my life total is higher. I think if my life total is a little lower, that would make the argument for defense station to be a little bit higher. Like, for instance, if I was at 32 versus 42 or less. Yep, this is all fine. So he heals for 10 here. Oh, God. Huge. And he buys defense system, which is fine. He's got a defense bot. He needs to protect his face now at this point, you know. So the thing is, by prioritizing healing, he also prioritizes defense. So he put himself on the defensive. You know, it was kind of a mistake. Like, you shouldn't put yourself on the defensive unless you're put on the defensive. This is a fairly standard play. I'm going to scrap a scout from my discard pile here. Yep. And then get rid of both trade stars, buy this Night Star. This is fine. I'm going for the throat at this point. I need to kill him. I need to kill him now because he's got a lot of healing and potentially a lot of bases coming. Boom, boom. Take him down to 12. Or take him down to 18. Yep. And see, this is an... Okay, no, wait. He doesn't have enough for it. Yeah. Another odd play. He buys the Citadel. Hold on, let me make sure he didn't... Yeah, he flips the Warning Beacon. Okay, so this is a little unfortunate for him. Again, I think this is also a mistake, though. He should be buying the Siege Fortress. The Citadel scraps, but it doesn't do any actual damage. He's already at 24, I'm at 36, but I have no healing. So getting the Siege Fortress maybe protects for less HP, but it gives him a chance to put 9 damage into my face. He should be thinking about that instead. But the other problem is he's got 2 cycles before he even gets to it. Ugh, he's probably going to die soon. And again, prioritizing damage. Warning Beacon, goddamn, MVP. Now he's down to 12. And sure enough, look what happens. He scraps his card, he draws, and just draws blues and draws scouts. And that's ball game. Boom. Yeah. So there you go. What did we learn? When you value efficiency, you win. This game took about 10 turns. Yeah. You know, he easily could have won this game. If he valued efficiency more, he would out-efficiency'd me. If he denied me scrap, I would have been under the gun. I would have been under the clock. And I would have been scrapping and becoming efficient far slower than he did. And that's how he would have won. Unfortunately, he feared for his life total when he had 38 life and started buying up blue cards that ultimately just clogged his deck and made him inefficient. And even though we had the same amount as scrappers, actually he was ahead on scrap, the problem is scrap only works once per turn. So if you scrap 3 cards, that's great, but then if you add 3 cards that don't draw and just bloat your deck with trade and healing, you didn't really do anything. You wasted an entire cycle when you should have been that much more efficient. I, on the other hand, prioritized scrap, prioritized efficiency, won the game. You know, notice at the end I was doing 12, 12, and 12. You know, that's how you kill your opponent. And I think he didn't even have time to draw his, he drew his healing cards like 1 time. So this is the problem with healing and sort of a defensive strategy, is that very often your opponent, if he's smart, will realize what you're doing and then just shoot you in the face. So yeah, guys, prioritize scrap and prioritize keeping scrap from your opponent. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Keep learning, keep rocking. The Rockstar. We'll see you guys next time. Scrap your scouts, everybody.